One, and we are live with Eli Prinsen. How are you this fine day, Eli?
I'm doing great, Kelly.
Awesome. Eli is the founder of HVT Vocal Technique. He was trained by master voice teacher Al Cohn. He's a professional vocalist himself, currently lead vocalist for the U.S. Christian power metal band The Sacrificed and European rock dream Patrol, along with some other bands. He's been a recording artist on both signed labels and indie labels. Hybrid Vocal Technique is the culmination of all of his vocal training and singing experience over the last 35 years, taking all the best from bel canto, modern and traditional SLS, scientific method singing, and gone tone. Do I have that roughly correct, Eli?
Yes, roughly correct.
What is gone tone?
Gantone is
Gan tone.
that's a somewhat of a scientific form of um, operatic classical vocal training. It's called Gantone jaw larynx body fusion. So it
Oh,
was created by Robert Gansert, and
hmm.
that's just a very old method of classical singing that I tinkered with after I studied with Al Cohen. I studied with another guy, and he showed me a blend of Gantone and what he called basic shape. So it's just two other little layers to the cake.
Got it. Now, were you always a singer? Did you grow up and you were a singer from the time you were a little kid, or how did you get into singing?
No, no, not at all. I was actually a drummer. I was a drummer in a band, and I from the time I was a little kid, I always listened to good singers, but I never attempted to sing because I always liked to play the drums. I became a drummer, and so it came to pass that we needed backing vocals, and I just figured, oh, this no problem. I'll just get me one of those little microphones, put it on my head, one of them little Kip Winger microphones, and give them the backing vocals. And then as soon as I tried to do that, it it didn't work. I couldn't sing very high at all. Had a lot lower of a speaking voice and natural voice, and um, I wasn't able to do the things I thought would be really easy to do. And so I ended up seeking out some instruction. That's a pretty funny story there, but yeah, I quickly realized that hey, this isn't for everybody. So I didn't have natural talent. I wasn't a singer. I didn't grow up doing this, but I had a love for it.
Well, you mentioned Kip Winger. Who are your favorite singers, or who at that time who were your favorite singers?
Um, Early on, my earliest kind of like favorite singers were actually rock singers, hard rock singers. I liked Bon Scott from AC/DC and Brad Delp from Boston. That when I was a kid. But now as I became a teenager, late teens, and metal kind of came in, I started hearing a lot of new voices that were just beyond next level. And I like Steve Perry too. I think every singer likes Steve Perry from Journey, but I was listening to bands like Judas Priest and Queensryche and um, Halloween and guys with these just massive vocal ranges and um, just then the dreaming really began. It's like, how are they doing this? How are they doing this?
Right, right, right. And how long did it take you to become a singer that could sing, starting to pull off those covers? What was it, a 6 months? Was it 3 months? Was it 3 years? Like three weeks? Like how long did it take you?
Um, the improvements started coming in the first year, from being nowhere and just having a dream and you know, pretty much showing up and saying, "Is this even possible? Can I do anything, with this? Am I fooling myself?" But um, so the first year I started and I got lucky. I found a really, really good teacher. I didn't have the horror stories that a lot of my students have coming through the doors. "Oh, I've tried this, I've tried that, I've tried this. This person told me I could sing better in 30 days." you know, I've heard it all, I've seen it all, but I had an amazing teacher right off the bat. So I was seeing people that I was listening to walk in and out of this place, out of his house. He taught out of his house. So he knew what he was doing. And so the first year I really started to get somewhere. The range started growing. I was actually I was starting to understand what was going on, but really becoming really good at it. I was able to hit notes and sing high and all that, but um, it's one thing to get the development and start getting someplace, but I was starting from scratch. I wasn't someone who was a singer and needed improvement and grew from there.
In those days, there was no internet, right? So, I mean, there had to be an element of luck to it. And the best singers, I remember like Steven Tyler in the 70s. He was lucky to bark out like a G4 or an A4, and he came back in whatever it was in the 80s, and all of a sudden, he's hitting C5s and D5s, and I thought to myself, what in the world has happened? But clearly, right, I mean, because it wasn't from clean living during 72 to 85 that he expanded his voice like that, right? So it seems like there must have been a pocket of instructors that were just able to take people and help them get where they wanted if they were willing to work hard for it.
This is exactly what happened. You hit the nail right on the head, actually. My teacher, Al Cohen, he was from Seattle, and he studied alongside of Jeff Tate from Queensryche, Ann Wilson from Hart. And this is way before, this is back in the day when they were studying, before Chris Cornell, Lane Staley, all these guys from in the the 90s and moving forward. They all studied with Maestro David Kyle in Seattle. And so that was my teacher's main teacher. And he studied in college, studied voice in college, but his main teacher, his mentor, was Maestro David Kyle from Seattle. And then he also studied with Dr. Robert Barr. So, but that's where these guys, all of these really, really good singers were studying in Seattle with
Yeah.
Maestro Kyle. And there was also on the West Coast, you had Ron Anderson and SLS coach, the big dog, Seth Riggs. So Seth was teaching SLS, but he had more of the pop crowd, the pop singers, you know, um, like Stevie Wonder and some big name Michael
Oh,
Jackson.
so Stevie Wonder. I was wondering. So Stevie Wonder, because I mean, yeah, listen to him sing, and it's so,
Mhm.
it's effortless. It's soulful. But it's Stevie Wonder, so you're like, well, yeah, everything he does, he seems to do at a genius level.
Oh,
So he did take instruction though, too, huh?
yep. So yeah, so on the West Coast, you had those guys, and Ron Anderson taught a lot of rock singers, and even all the way until he passed away a couple of years ago. I think it's been a year and a half since he's passed, but he was teaching a lot of folks. But
Do you know
yes,
that? Yeah.
mainly in the metal years, right in the early through late '80s and early '90s is when the maestro had taught a lot of people, and word of mouth back in those days. And that was a big selling point for my friend that got me to go and meet Al, was that he had found, again, before the internet, he had found a stack of flyers at our giant music store that we had in Tampa, where all the musicians would go hang out and try all the instruments and buy stuff. And there was a stack of flyers on the counter before you would leave. And it had this guy, singing and doing this, picture and all that. And it says, learn from the teacher of, the same style that from of Jeff Tate and this, that, and the other. But my teacher taught. His name was John. His lessons were right before mine. The guy that sang in Crimson Glory was trained by my teacher. So it was the same technique. It was the same technique as Maestro Kyle, and so that's a big part of HVT. That's the bulk of HVT is what I learned from Al Cohen.
Okay. Very cool. Yeah, the Axl Roses of the world, all those guys show up in LA and all of a sudden the ranges are extended, and you knew something was going on in LA. So there had to be one or two teachers that were able to help a lot of people out there, which very cool.
I got lucky that he came from Seattle and settled in Florida. It was about 50 minutes from me. And I would drive it every Saturday before the internet. There wasn't no Skype lessons back then.
No, right? So I could talk all about the music all afternoon, but I know my listeners always want to hear about some amount of business. Not really, probably, but you know, tell me about starting a business as a singing coach. Are you how technical? You know, because you're on YouTube and the other platforms. What do you know? Do you have people that work with you, or are you doing all of that yourself? Are you having to learn the softwares, for example, and make the videos, edit the videos, doing all that work yourself when you're starting a business on YouTube?
I kind of took to it just from using all of these tools from like I mean I remember getting a computer in like 98, right? And at that time I was a musician, and I used to not even want to get near a computer before that until I figured out, hey, I was recording in the in the tape world of tape before computer recording, before the days of the DAW. And I figured, I found out quickly, hey, you can record music with computers. And I used to be kind of a control freak a little bit with the layout of the albums and sleeves of the CDs and stuff like that, and having the lyrics and all the stuff in there. And then of course you know older people like me and know where I'm coming from. This has been around forever for a lot of up to the millennials probably. Just like, oh, it's always been there. But back in the day, you had to have the printers do all this stuff. You had to have printing and recording, and we used to spend a tremendous amount of money in studios. So when I found out, okay, I can do some of this graphics design for the layout, I can be and have my hands in there and be involved in that and recording and all this. I just took to it because I had that interest in it. And so I had started to learn this stuff before I ever went into business, online teaching.
Yeah. Where do your students come from? Are they from the U.S. mainly, or are they from around the globe? Or
They are from all over the world. First online student was from Norway. My very first one, yeah. So
Scandinavians love metal.
yes, we do. Yeah. So yeah, it's I've learned a lot of different countries that I can neither pronounce or spell, if you know what I mean. Just meeting people I'd never meet otherwise, and it's awesome.
Cool. What level of singer do you take? Like, so if there's someone out there that says, you know what, I've always wanted to sing, I have no idea if I can pull this off or not. Is that do you start with people that really have no experience at all, or do you tend to work with people that are more experienced singers?
It's from one end of the spectrum to the other, from raw beginners to professionals. It's all in between. Which is fun because it's cool meeting famous people and and listening to the things that they give me the NDAs for, that they don't want to, I'm not supposed to talk about it and everything. And because I get to hear some of the flaws and the things they're working on and get some inside kind of knowledge there. But I love teaching the beginners too. I love it because I was still the worst student in the world. I was the worst. So I love teaching the beginners and taking all of the frustrations that I had to learn, all the problems I had to fix, and try to help them to get it a lot faster than I did.
Nice. And if someone out there decides they want to pursue their hidden dream of singing, where do they find you? Is it hybridvocaltechnique.com, or what's your website?
Yeah, hybridvocaltechnique.com. Um, Actually, I have two websites, hybridvocaltechnique.com and streaming.hybridvocaltechnique.com, but one leads to the other. I'm on YouTube. I'm
And
on,
you're on LinkedIn too, aren't you?
yeah, I'm on LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram, you name it.
Okay. Remind me to link in with you. I'll send you a link right after this. I'll send you a LinkedIn request.
Okay.
Nice. Well, Eli, thank you so much for your time. Have a great weekend. And for everyone else out there listening, you are watching the Kelly Wendland podcast. Have a great day.